Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'll be giving my thoughts on part of yesterday's Prime Minister's questions. Usually I would go through my general thoughts on the exchanges at least between Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer, as well as Ian Blackford. On this occasion, a little bit different. I'm gonna go over some of the build up to this, but I'm effectively going to be going over I suppose the major news of it, which was that Keir Starmer dropped a massive clanger. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So in this one, I'm sorry, I'm going to miss out Ian Blackford's. I mean, at the end of the day, if I was going to be discussing anything to do with Ian Blackford this week, it would be the little issues that are happening within the SNP. But there's a few things about that are interesting, but I'm not sure if are verifiable just yet. So we'll leave that one for now. But yes, Starmer, complete unforced error, and I do not know what possessed him. And, you know, because it started well enough. Keir Starmer was making Boris Johnson look like the lazy, incompetent Prime Minister that he is. Usual thing, usual dance, Boris Johnson trying to deflect it, not answering the questions. And the thing is, you cannot get away with this. Boris Johnson lies all the time, several times a day, and he makes errors as well, and they'll just be covered up. It's the nature of the beast. When you're the Conservative leader, a lot of the media is on your side and will just cover up for you. And just because of the way things have been going over the last few years, some other parts, not all, some other parts of the media will cover for you as well, even though they're not necessarily on your side as such. Labour leader doesn't really get away with it. I think there's a few reasons for this. First of all, it's just to do with the different sides as well. I mean, I'm not suggesting that all people on the right are dishonest, but many people on the right will accept a dishonest leader. You know, all about, ends justify the means and all the rest of it. You've got to use every advantage, because for them, as you know, as people will say, for them, the principle is power. The central principle is power. And they will cover up anything. They'll turn a blind eye. It's a little bit like a football fan cheering a goal that was scored because one of your team cheated. They dived or they were offside and not caught out, something like that. And you cheer anyway because all you care about is that your team scored a goal. People on the left, and of course I will say, are much more principled and all the rest of it. But should we put it this way? For people on the left, the principle is often more important than the power, which is sometimes disappointing. But that is the reality of the situation. And, but yeah, I mean, it started well enough. You had this first question, which was entirely predictable. The first question, you could have put money on it, because the news broke this week. I'd talked about it myself. The government scientific advisors in SAGE had told the government that restrictions on people travelling from just some countries would not prevent the South African variant entering the country. Obvious, really. You know, it's all right talking about the South African variant because you believe that's where it emerged. But if you have someone travel, it's all right saying, so if you're travelling from South Africa to the UK, we've got these restrictions in place for you. But if someone goes from South Africa to somewhere else, and then from somewhere else to the UK, and it's like, it's all right, you didn't come from South Africa, you can just come straight in. No, that's not how it works. And you know, and so this was put towards Boris Johnson, is saying, look, you know, why did you ignore this advice? Because the variant is now in the country. And the Prime Minister was bang to rights on this. You know, Starmer was always going to pick on this. In response, Johnson denied that SAGE had advised this, to which then Starmer responded by asking for the minutes. He said, that's interesting. Could you publish the minutes then so we can see for ourselves? Of course, he wasn't going to say yes to that. And he also asked Johnson so hang on a minute, let me just get this right then. So the reason we don't have the more widespread restrictions, is that because you don't think it's going to make a difference or because it's too difficult to do? Obvious trap, of course, absolutely classic. Because if Boris Johnson says, well, I don't think it'd make a difference, then every expert in the country and beyond will go, of course it bloody will, you idiot, and tear the statement down. If he says, no, it might have made a difference, but it's just too difficult to do, then there's lots of examples of other countries who did just that. Hello, New Zealand. How are you doing? Oh, you're doing very well. That's interesting. We're not doing so well. So Johnson's response, of course, was not to answer it at all. That's fairly standard. Then Starmer stitched Johnson up with his, childish concept of direct routes. Again, make him look stupid. So he's basically saying, look, he said the South African variant comes from South Africa, so restrictions, placed on people who just travel from there, that doesn't cover it. He pointed out that, for example, in terms of coronavirus entering the country, only 0.1% of it is accounted for travel from China, because we had restrictions in place on people travelling from China. But he said like 62% came from France and Spain, where we did not have restrictions in those early days. And he was pointing out, look, it can travel. He asked the Prime Minister, why do you think the variants are going to behave any differently to the original form? That they're only going to come to the UK via direct routes. And then Johnson used one of his common tricks, which is he reworded the question completely. You can always tell when he's doing this, because he said, and I think that's what the right honourable member means. Basically, he makes up his own question and thinks, I can't quite understand your words because, I'm not that clever. So I've put it in my own words and I think this is what you mean. Of course he's not, but never mind. And then he went on the attack against Labour. Needless to say, he didn't answer the question there either. And then he tried to explain what our quarantine procedures are and didn't get it quite right. Never mind. So it was going all right. And then Starmer dropped his bollock. Basically, as part of Johnson's avoidance, again, trying to turn it onto Labour, he wanted to get the subject back onto vaccinations, which is where he feels comfortable. It's like last year, he just wanted to talk about Brexit. He was desperate for Keir Starmer. He probably thought when Keir Starmer became leader, this is brilliant, we're going to be talking about Brexit every week. And then Keir Starmer wouldn't talk about it. And it's like, it got to like June and he just cracked and started answering questions about Brexit, even though he wasn't being asked any. And it's like that now. He wants to talk about the vaccinations because at the moment, I suspect this is not going to be the case forever. But at the moment, you can't say that the government are messing up on the vaccinations. I mean, you can be sceptical about certain things, but nothing has gone wrong with it yet. Or, well, nothing majorly anyway. So he feels comfortable talking about it. He certainly doesn't feel comfortable talking about anything else. But, I mean, at least the vaccine, he kept bringing Brexit up last year when he was asked COVID questions. I suppose bringing up vaccinations is at least indirectly related because it is at least part of the pandemic response. But he said, look, if Labour were in charge, we'd still be on the ground floor with the vaccinations. We'd never be this far ahead. And he said because Starmer wanted for us to stay in the European Medicines Agency. To which Starmer got up and first of all, he implied that Johnson was lying to distract. But here's the thing. Then Starmer denied ever having said that at the dispatch box. The problem is that he did. Now, here's the thing. If Starmer had just dismissed the idea that being in the European Medicines Agency would have had to have changed the vaccination policy. In other words, Boris Johnson is trying to make out that we could only do what we did with vaccines because we left. No, we were still in when we made those decisions. We only left the provisions of... I know the European Medicines Agency headquarters moved, but we were still within its provisions last year. That only changed on the 1st of January. That only changed, 30 odd days ago. We'd already approved the vaccines before then. So it had nothing to do with it. We still could have chosen to do that. We still could have chosen to do it on our own. That's fine. Starmer didn't say that. It didn't come at that. He could have gone on the attack. He could have said that, if it's all going so well, how come we've had outbreaks in care homes where all the residents have been vaccinated? If your vaccination strategy is going so brilliantly, can you tell me why we've got care homes where everyone had been vaccinated and yet we've had outbreaks occur since then? Could have done that, didn't do that. Starmer clearly said that he never said what Johnson claimed he did. It was wrong, objectively wrong. A lie or omission doesn't matter. It's factually incorrect, which means a correction will have to be made to the House because that's how it works. If you say something that's wrong, because it's all on record. If you ever want to look up what a politician said at any time, you can look it up on Hansard. It's all recorded, every line, which means, and it's there for history. So if something turns out to be wrong, you are invited to correct the record. And it can be inadvertent. No one's saying it has to be a lie. But, and I know what someone will be saying is, hang on, Boris Johnson misleads all the time. The record's an absolute shambles whenever he opens his mouth. He lied several times in this session before Starmer misled the House. Yeah. Yes. And does he ever correct the record? No, he does not. He's a liar. But it's also baffling. I didn't understand why Starmer would even try and deny wanting us to have stayed in the European Medicines Agency. Why not just have said that the membership had no impact on vaccine strategy? Why not point out, about the care homes, why, there's outbreaks occurring there? Turn it on an attack on Johnson. Johnson always likes to turn every question on attack against Labour. Why doesn't Starmer fight back like that? Maddening, absolute shocker. Now, here's the thing. Granted, he said it years ago. It wasn't recent, and it wasn't since he became Labour leader. We've had 2 general elections since he said it. That's how long ago it was. But obviously the way the news will go, the news will fly around. Starmer accused Johnson of lying on the one time that Johnson was not actually lying. All right, he still didn't tell the full truth because Johnson said that Starmer had said it on at least 4 occasions, and all I've been able to find evidence of is like 2. But I'm not going to split hairs. At the end of the day, Johnson said that Starmer said a thing. Starmer did sort of say that thing. And a Labour leader has to be so careful. Johnson's daily lies are covered by a complicit and largely Tory-backed media. Until yesterday, the right-wing press had nothing on Starmer. Do you remember that time when the Daily Mail tried to attack him for buying a donkey sanctuary for his mother? That's what they had on him. That he loves his mother and he cares for animals. Or his mother cares for animals and he helped enable her do so. That was it. That's what they had on him. Now, misled the House. They can even call it a lie. Because, you can try and say, oh, it was years ago, I forgot. Okay, you may have forgotten. But nonetheless, you categorically denied saying a thing that you actually said and is recorded as saying. Really have to get away with it. This will be brought up time and again. It'll be brought up by Boris Johnson in future PMQs. It'll be brought up next week, guaranteed. It'll be brought up by the press when they feel they need to as well. It'll be brought up in 2024. So stupid. That being said, I'm not going to go mad about it because, I saw someone saying that, oh yeah, Starmer will never recover from this. Nonsense. Try and think it through. He said something on a day. He denied saying something that he'd said years ago, when also Brexit meant something very different. Since the session, Starmer said he's made a mistake and apologised. That won't go far enough. He will have to go to the House and correct the record at the first opportunity. That may well be later today. They've also tried to turn it back on the Conservatives by saying that actually Johnson was misleading the House by trying to suggest that it was Labour policy to remain in the European Medicines Agency, because that's what Johnson was effectively saying. He was saying with Labour in charge, we wouldn't be as far ahead on the vaccination strategy. So therefore, he's saying it was Labour policy to have done things differently. And it wasn't Labour policy under either Corbyn or Starmer. That's perfectly true. Fine. But he said he'd never said that in the dispatch box when he had. So he misled the House inadvertently. He'll claim it's inadvertent. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Doesn't matter. But the record has to be corrected. And the Conservatives will feast on it for a long time to come. That being said, I'm going to suggest this. In 2024, if still the only thing they have on Starmer is that in 2021, he denied saying something that he turns out he did say in 2017, 4 years earlier. And then later on that day, he says, sorry, I forgot. Yeah, I did say that. I apologise. And then immediately corrected the record in the House. If that's the worst they have on him in 4 years' time, I'll be quite happy. Because I'll be honest, I don't think this will be the only mistake. What's disappointing for me, it's a few things. One, it was an unforced error. There was no need for it. As long as my arse looks south, I will not know what possessed him. Why did he even need to deny it? I really don't get it. He just had to explain that it was irrelevant. That's all there is to it. And the other thing as well for some people, you know, even if they think Starmer lied about it, and it really doesn't matter, I'm not going to try and argue the toss whether he did or he didn't. Even if they did, Boris Johnson lies all the time, really. But even in, you know, in the short term, it's not going to have any impact. Let's be honest. It was frustrating for Labour supporters that Starmer scored an own goal. That was frustrating because if he's done it once, he could do it again in the future. Disappointing. Granted, no one's perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. But an unforced error, you don't want unforced errors. It's frustrating for opponents of Johnson that aren't necessarily Labour supporters because Boris Johnson was let off the hook. Starmer had him, as usual, let him off the hook completely. It was frustrating for rejoiners because I don't know about others, but I want to know why all of a sudden he's trying to distance himself from being in favour of European schemes. Why? Why? And it's bloody frustrating if you're all three, as I am. But there we go. Very serious error. That was the talk of the town yesterday. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.